So the two major field elements that we have for the project are, one, of course, the speed limit signs themselves, which are located on both sides of the roadway, the shoulder and the median. And those signs have a beacon on top. That beacon flashes when the system is activated, so whenever the speed limit is below the maximum speed limit for the corridors, which are 70 and 65. And then the other major component is the radar vehicle detectors, which collect the traffic flow data, the speed, the volume, the occupancy on the roadway, and that data is used to inform the algorithm, which then recommends the speed limits. We have 24 of these sites located along the corridor, along the 15-mile corridor. They're spaced at approximately 0.6 of a mile segments. And we have added 6 cameras with this project to increase our surveillance of the corridor. So this short video here will show what happens when an incident occurs that causes a slowdown on the corridor. As the crash occurs, or when the crash occurs, the speed limit will reduce by 10-mile-per-hour increments to the speed at that site, or to 35 miles per hour, which is as low as it will go. And then the posted speed limits upstream will reduce to harmonize the traffic flow through the incident, and also to alert drivers and reduce crashes. The speed limits only change every 10 or in increments of 10 miles per hour, and they don't change any more frequently than once every minute. And then you'll see as the incident clears, the speed limit quickly goes back up to the maximum on the corridor, so we don't keep anyone at lower speeds longer than we need to.
We did look at the crashes in the corridor between milepost 115 and 130. This is data through the end of July, which is the last month where the crash data has been closed out for us, because we do have a reporting lag for when crashes come in. Before I discuss this, I do want to emphasize crashes are very rare and random events. Typically, we as traffic engineers like to have at least a year, but preferably 3 years of data before we start doing crash analysis, and this is only 5 weeks. So to say take this with a grain of salt is an understatement. So please use this with caution. Now, I will say, though, that our early crash results from these 5 weeks are positive, though. And that's certainly better to have positive results with limited data. But again, take these with caution. What I would like to point out is if we look at the very last row, what we've done is we've broken out the number of crashes that we observed in the first half of the year before the variable speed limit system was activated, and then what we saw in that first 5 weeks of operation, and compared it to the corresponding time periods in the years prior to that. And so what we saw is that in the first half of this year, we had about a 38% increase in the number of crashes in this corridor over the prior year. And this was the largest number of crashes we had had in the corridor in the last 5 years in that January 1st to June 21st time period. So that, again, mirrors some of the things that the board, I think, has heard about in some of the crash trends that we've seen post-pandemic, where we did see an uptick in crashes in the corridor. For those first 5 weeks following activation, a promising thing that we saw was that crashes were actually down 17% versus the corresponding time period in the year before. So not only were the crashes down from what we saw in the same time period in 2021, but we also reversed that trend that we saw in the first half of this year. So again, extremely preliminary data, only 5 weeks here, but it's an indication that we're seeing trends in the crashes that reflect the trends in the speed behavior that we're seeing with the data that we've collected. Okay, so just to summarize, as Mina mentioned, what we're seeing here is that the system is working as designed, and when we say that, we mean that it is the speed limits that we're posting are responding to the observed traffic speeds in the way that we expected them to. So the actual speed limit postings seem to be working right. Early results are that the drivers are reacting to the variable speed limits. We've seen those average speeds go down 3 to 4 miles an hour during that transitional flow. We have seen reduced speed differentials between adjacent lanes, which has been a benefit for us from a safety perspective. Early crash trends show positive results, but again, it's only 5 weeks of data, so interpret this with caution. So what we would like to do is come back to the board when we do have more data available where we can talk about longer term performance in the corridor. Early results are certainly promising. We hope to have a larger data set, especially of the crash data, so that we can give you a more detailed report out in the future.